The agenda, please. Councillor Gatward, seconded by Councillor Miller. All those in favor? Opposed, carried. Thank you. A declaration of pecuniary interest. New rules. Yes, Councillor Miller.
Not till March. I'll declare for under 4B, pecuniary interest.
Thank you. Any others? Delegations. The first delegation is going to be Paula Tomlinson, Larry Brock, and Debbie Brown, presenting for Crossing All Bridges. And apparently Phil McComan.
Good evening, Your Worship and fellow councillors. My name is Larry Brock. I am the current chair of the Crossing All Bridges Learning Centre. I'd like to introduce my executive director, Paula Tomlinson, right behind me, and one of the founding mothers of our agency, Debbie Brown. We also want to acknowledge that we have quite the entourage here with us to present this proposal. We have one of our capital campaign co-chairs, our current MP for Brant, Phil McComan. We also have many fundraisers that are here to watch this presentation. We also have agency parents and caregivers. We have several board of directors in attendance and staff. Also joining us this evening are
my husband and I had 3 girls.
This started around concerns about our kids. We wanted them to be out in the community. We wanted them to have a reason to get up in the morning. We wanted them to be able to still grow. We knew we had to do something.
It's an amazing thing when you see the door open and people come through the center every day. It is their space. It is their home. They're with their peers. They walk in the door and it's instant love. It belongs to them. They feel that this belongs to them and they belong.
Every parent just wants their kid to be happy, right? So you struggled all your life from when they're born, trying to get them to be happy, trying to get them to learn, trying to get them to fit into society and have a good day. That's what happens at Crossing All Bridges.
They're not alone in this. They've got a whole community of people there to lift them up when they need it.
They grow as individuals because they have the opportunity to make friends and to maintain friendships and to learn what it's like to act appropriately with friends.
He feels like he fits and he belongs because he's learning conversation skills, and he's very, very happy, just always bubbly and bursting with pride because of the things he's doing here.
There's often times we'll be driving here in the mornings and she'll be sitting there and she's thinking something and then she starts rubbing her hands and she's getting all excited and I'll say, "What are you excited about?" And she goes, "I just love my life." That's the anticipation of coming here.
It's just going to get better. I just can't believe the leaps and bounds in the 3 years I've noticed with the instructors, the programming, the board of directors, the vision that they have. It's good to know this is a place she can come and feel safe, cared for, and provides her with an environment where she just can continue to learn and grow.
of the most important things we've done at Crossing All Bridges in the last year is open a social enterprise called Shredding Barriers.
One of the things that interested me the most when I was involved with this group of wonderful people was their drive and their passion and their want to be like everybody else. They watched their sisters and brothers go off to work. They wanted to go off to work. So when that idea was tweaked, it was, well, what kind of work could these people do? We started with shredding in my office. And then we started thinking, well, why can't they do this? They can do this.
The biggest piece of all is they get paid minimum wage for the work they do. One of the most glorious things I've seen since I've opened the doors at Crossing All Bridges and joining this organization was the day we handed out first paychecks. They'll go by my office to change out of their regular street clothes into their Shredding Barriers uniform, and it's like they're different people.
He's very proud of the work that he does. This little step alone has given him so much confidence and responsibility. It's something that he wouldn't be able to do without this facility. And at the end of the day, he'll come home and tell me, I did shredding barriers, I did shredding today, I had a good time.
The kids have really kind of come alive. What I've noticed in a lot of them is that it's not, I'm going to Crossing All Bridges, it's, I'm going to work today. And they get paid, and they have to work so many hours, and they have to fulfill all of the requirements of an employee.
They want to work, they can work, and they deserve to work, and we make sure that happens.
My husband and I had 3 girls, and we thought our family was complete. Then found out that I was pregnant. When he was 2 years old, we noticed Jordan's neck swelling and his glands swelling. The doctor didn't think too much of it. He thought that Jordan might have mumps. I just knew something wasn't right. Finally, they did a blood test, and he said that Jordan had leukemia.
We're devastated.
He did survive it, but with challenges. He has mental delays. It really did change our lives forever. Crossing All Bridges gives us that hope in creating that space that Jordan can meet friends and is independent. He absolutely loves going to Crossing All Bridges. It gives him purpose.
Are there any questions of the delegation? We know it all. Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the delegation. Could you just explain how the 2.5 million will be spent? I mean, is it something you're going to pay on an instalment basis, or are you planning to raise the 2.5 million then pay it all off? Or does that include also for any improvements to the buildings?
We will have to do some improvements to the building, but a lot of funds we've raised to date have been pledged, so we will be paying it off over installments over 3 to 5 years. We need a new roof, we need new HVAC systems, and we only have one accessible doorway right now, so it'll help.
Any other questions? Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the delegation. If a family has financial restrictions, is there a way of them being helped to get their child in there? I don't want to put you on the spot, but I just...
Families once they reach the age of 18, families can apply to the Development Services in Ontario, to the Ontario government, for what they call passport money. So each family, it's up to their responsibility to make their case for their individual, and then the government grants us funds that we can then in turn use to pay for this service. So it's a advocacy responsibility of every parent.
Okay. Any other questions? Mark Ferrier.
Through you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Mayor, and Mr. Chair, to the delegation. With the ability to lower your overall costs due to the lack of lease when you're able to buy, I guess I have a two-part question. One is, how close are you to that goal? And two, will you be able to offer more opportunities for lower income families to be able to utilize your services or lower tuition?
I did first of all, we're probably at around 2 million. In pledges, again, that's over a 5-year period. I did a survey of similar centres across Ontario, and I couldn't find anything less than $75 a day. And our board, thanks to the vision of our founding mothers, our programs are offered at about $52 a day, so we're well below the provincial average already. So we want to keep it that way.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other questions, thank you for coming, Paula, Larry, and Debbie. And I've known Phil and Nancy since Jordan was born, and it's a remarkable story, and it's remarkable that Jordan's with us here tonight. So take care, Jordan, and thank you for the presentation.
Thanks.
The next delegation is going to be Olga Consorti from St. Joe's.
Try that again. That was test one. Good evening, Mayor Bailey and County Councillors. My name is Olga Consorti, and I'm the President and CEO of St. Joseph's Life Care Foundation. Congratulations to you all for being elected to uphold the special duties to enhance the quality of life for those who live, work, and play in the county by providing efficient and effective delivery of local services. Our hope tonight is that we align with your mission by bringing forward an exciting new initiative which will greatly enhance the quality of lives for Brant residents who turn to us for care and support during the most vulnerable time in their lives. To this end, we will be requesting support of Studman Community Hospice and a $250,000 commitment to long-term care through St. Joseph's Life Care Centre. I will be speaking to Studman Community Hospice request, and my colleague David here, who I'll more formally introduce in a moment, will be speaking to the impact of our long-term care request. Thank you once again for your tremendous contribution last year of $100,000 in support of the hospice. Please know that these funds went to immediate good use to support our bereavement program, which is primarily community funded. This comprehensive program also includes an enhanced children's bereavement component where we facilitate children's grief camps and one-on-one sessions as well. Our hope is to continue to provide this vital service to our community through your continued support. Here's a picture of Brant resident, sweet Vienna Stewart. I know many of you are very familiar with the Stewart family, and we had the privilege of caring for Vienna's sister Charlotte at the hospice. Here she's proudly displaying the work that she did through a children's bereavement day camp that we had at one of our special paint pours. Here we have some children in a recent session that we had for grief and bereavement through our Christmas project. In anticipation of the sadness and distress that many feel because of the loss of their loved one, particularly at Christmas, this gingerbread house making experience allowed the kids to express their grief in a creative and very tasty way. Grief starts from the moment of diagnosis of a life-limiting illness, and so does our programming. We want to ensure that we are here for everyone at any age and any stage of their illness. To do so, our grief and bereavement team also provides outreach services where we provide care to visiting patients and grieved loved ones right in their own homes. To date, we've had more than 450,000 community outreach visits, which also includes providing pain and symptom management right at the bedside. With grief sessions in the community starting at approximately $100 an hour, families are just not able to afford them. By way of example, a 12-week bereavement program for an average family of 4 would cost a staggering $4,800. And that's only for one 12-week session with no follow-up visits. From a grief and bereavement perspective, we accommodated more than 1,620 visits and consultations last year alone. And the best part is that because of your support, we were able to provide this care that people desperately need and deserve free of charge. Our aim is to continue to provide these services at no cost to the bereaved in a very timely manner. We respectfully request that you continue your contribution of $100,000 in support of this vital community service for your 2019 budget. I'd now like to turn the podium over to David Wormold, who's the interim president of St. Joe's Life Care Center, which also includes Stedman Community Hospice. David is also the president of St. Joseph's Health Center in Guelph and the elder care portfolio of our St. Joe's Health System that oversees 1,000 long-term care beds. Today he'll be highlighting a wonderful new initiative for our long-term care residents. David?
Well, good evening, Mayor Bailey, councillors, and guests. I'm grateful to be here and have the opportunity to meet with you this evening with the hope that you'll be as enthusiastic about our latest endeavor as we are. As Olga stated, we are extremely thankful for the generous funding that the county has extended to our organization over the years. As one of only 2 not-for-profit long-term care homes in the area, your financial support has made possible our ability to provide exemplary care to our residents. Every penny has gone directly to the bedside to enhance the quality of their care. Since opening our doors in 2004, much has changed and the demands for long-term care beds has never been critical. Right now, there are more than 33,000 Ontarians on a waiting list to access long-term care, and it's estimated that by 2021, so in just 2 years, the wait list will grow to 48,000. So the need is urgent. We're also noticing that those are living in the community longer, and so that when they do come into long-term care, they're usually presenting at an advanced age, much more acute and complex, and significantly impacted with many other diseases. We know that currently 79% of the residents have some form of dementia, and quite frankly, dementia is the epidemic of our times. There is no cure for Alzheimer's or dementia to date or the foreseeable future. We see aggression, agitation, outbursts, and pacing often result when a person's ability to communicate fails. And we know that at St. Joseph's Life Care, that the clinical care that we provide is exemplary. However, we know that there's something missing despite our best efforts. So instead of highlighting some more facts and figures, what I'd like to do is to share with you a story about a typical long-term care resident. So let's call her Grace. Grace is 82 years old. She and her husband, Jack, have been happily married for over 60 years. A devoted couple, they've raised 2 loving children, and they enjoy 6 grandchildren. You know, Grace was a very quiet and creative person. She had a really busy life, and it was fulfilling. In fact, you know, she was a skillful baker, and she was an exceptional cake decorator who loved to create special treats for her family and friends. Regrettably, though, Grace was diagnosed with dementia in her late 60s. So Jack became Grace's primary caregiver in the home, and they were really supported by a strong network of family and friends. But over time, caring for Grace became a roller coaster of emotional, physical, and personal challenges. Grace became increasingly confused and suffered from anxiety attacks. You know, the faces of people in magazines and on TV had become Grace's new circle of friends with whom she enjoyed long and animated conversations. And increasingly, Grace started to show resistance to social gatherings, and slowly her husband and her friends faded from her world. And in fact, one morning, Grace wandered off, and it was a caring neighbor who noticed her and brought her back home unharmed. Now, Jack wasn't in good health either, and you know, he began to realize the reality that it was becoming more and more difficult to care for Grace at home, and that she needed more hands-on care with a lot of her activities. So there came a pivotal moment, a difficult and a heart-wrenching decision. Grace came to live in long-term care, and this was so hard for Jack and the family to experience a living loss. You know, for Grace, it seemed like as if she had moved into a residential hotel with lots of friends and smiling faces. However, the ravages of this insidious disease progressed with unpredictable outbursts and aggression towards others. And the Grace they knew and loved, she didn't know anyone anymore. And in fact, you know, Grace never understood that Jack died shortly after being diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. But the long-term care staff who looked after her, they knew Grace's life history, her talents, her food preferences. They knew her children and grandchildren, and all the activities that Grace enjoyed. And you know, that really brought meaning and purpose to her life. And you know, sometimes there is a spark of recognition. It either is a voice, sometimes it's just a whiff of a favorite perfume of hers, or a loving massage of her hands or brushing of her hair, a touch, something, if only in a fleeting moment. And the beauty is that the staff who are with her at that moment in time. You know, dementia really needs to be recognized and acknowledged in a person-centered way, and we need to give not only respect but dignity and comfort for those who experience the journey of this invisible disability. So as our population grows and our long-term care system like ours are all going to be facing more demands and expectations, and that's why we share the story of Grace. You know, we need to be innovative in order to address the diverse and the changing needs that we see happen in our community and also within our healthcare system. And the concept of what it means for a long-term care resident to live fully every day is at the heart of all of our considerations. And St. Joe's Life Care Center does not wish to be in the business of just providing basic care. You know, enhancing the care experience not only means providing residents, patients, families with the type of care that they need, but when they need it, but also ensuring a rich and rewarding experience during a stage of life many perceive as undesirable, a time when one must depend upon others for care and for support. A time when your citizens turn to us in despair and frustration, not being able to continue to function independently in their own homes. We respectfully request that you continue to invest in quality, compassionate care for Brant County's most vulnerable citizens with the support of $100,000 annually. Now, in addition to this much-needed funding...
Mr. Warmel?
Yes.
One more minute, please.
Okay. Well, we're excited to propose a plan that would include a worldwide movement that completely transforms our long-term care experience. We're looking at a partnership with an organization called Dementia Care Matters. And this is really an innovative approach to providing of care called the Butterfly Model. It began in 1995 and it's expanded to 155 leading long-term care homes across the world, 7 in Canada, and we believe only 1 in Ontario, and we would like to be the second one formally. So what we're requesting as we move forward is to have a commitment of funding that would allow us to enter into an agreement with the Dementia Care Matters. It would be a 12-month plan, and we would like to, through that partnership, be able to have these experts come in and to be able to do an assessment and give us a roadmap around how we can implement this innovative model of care for our residents who we are privileged to serve. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Do we have any questions from council? Councillor LaFerrier.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I know the good work you do personally and professionally as a social worker. But out of fairness, I asked the same question to Crossing All Bridges when I went on a tour there recently, just around comparators. And you may not have the answer readily available, but if you could get it to us in the future, that'd be great. And the question is simply, what is the percentage of county funding that you currently get versus city funding? And what are the percentages of county clients or patients that you have versus city patients, just to make sure that we're pulling our own weight or maybe a little more, I don't know, but it'd be good to have that information before we make decisions.
Right, so we don't have that information, but we would be happy to and pleased to provide that information to you.
Thank you so much.
Councillor Gatward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the delegation. Last year, I believe I asked about the St. Joe's Life Care Centre budget. Of course, we have a budget for our John Noble home, which is also long-term care. And I don't believe I've seen a copy of the budget that you operate under. So I would like to have a copy so that we can review it and compare apples to apples. So thank you. Would that be possible?
Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor House.
Thank you for the presentation, through you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation, and to echo what Mark said, I've seen a little firsthand through a family member just how wonderful the services are that you offer to this community. For anyone who's set foot into your facility, it's always incredible to see the level of care that you're able to deliver. Could you give us a little, informally, a little background on how everything is funded? And I mean a short version of just, because I think a lot of people don't realize when they set foot in the door how all of this is possible.
Sure, if I could. As far as the hospice goes, the entire capital project has been community funded. Everything from the bricks and mortar, equipment, medical equipment, furnishings, heat, hydro, everything's community funded, and we're so grateful for that. From an operating perspective, a portion of nursing is funded from the hospital funded. So all the programming that we have for our day wellness program, much of the programs we talked about today is community funded. From the long-term care facility, it is mandated by the province that there is a set fee that we charge each long-term care resident. So that's regardless of whether it's long-term care in Brantford or long-term care in Toronto, it's a standardized fee. But being the benefit of being a nonprofit organization, we're able to enhance the level of care through community funding to ensure that we have various additional programs, a greater staffing model, things that are of real benefit for the residents as well.
Any other questions? Well, thank you for your presentation. And it was a year ago today that my stepfather passed away at the hospice. And so I do understand what you do and how well you do it. So thank you for coming tonight, and hopefully we'll be able to help you.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is the Paris Library, I'm sorry, Paris Museum. Kate is presenting.
Hello, Mr. Mayor, members of council, staff, and members of the public. I'm delighted to be here tonight on behalf of Paris Museum and Historical Society. I'm the president of that society. My name is Kate Briat, and I have with me Stephanie Pyle, sorry she's not on your agenda, for moral support. And we have a short video that we would like to show just to introduce councillors who may not know anything about us, just to tell you a little about our organization. Are we good to go, Heather? Yeah.
Hello, my name is Stephanie Pyle, and I'm a board member of the Paris Museum and Historical Society. Please allow me to share a little bit about our local museum. The Paris Museum and Historical Society was founded in 1972 by a small group of local heritage-minded residents. Today, we are an incorporated and registered charity. Our mission, to collect, preserve, and make accessible through exhibits and research material the rich cultural heritage of Paris and surrounding area. We are affiliated with the Ontario Historical Society and are the only organization in the province to house archives, a museum, and a historical society all under one roof. We know that Paris's heritage could very well be lost without the tireless efforts of our volunteers. The Paris Museum and Historical Society belongs to a number of other professional associations, including the Ontario Museum Association, the Brant Museum and Art Gallery Association, and the Archives Association of Ontario. Our location inside the Silaps Community Centre on William Street in Paris, Ontario, houses a research reading room, warehouse with storage facility, an exhibition hall, and our museum gift shop, which features work by many different local artists and artisans. Our collection comprises over 40,000 objects and archival documents, such as fine art, land documents, photographs, maps, family histories, extensive files on local buildings and businesses, and many other historical documents and artifacts. We have microfilms of local newspapers from the 1880s onward and bound original newspapers to 2010. Thanks to a recent generous donation, we are now digitizing most of our microfilm collection, and we are constantly updating our collection methods. Today, our major challenge is that we simply do not have enough physical space for our collection and operations. Our current location, generously provided by the county, has a roof prone to leaking, putting our community's history at risk. We need to find a permanent home to ensure the security of the organization and our irreplaceable collection. We enjoy collaborating with community partners like the County of Brant Library System, where we have contributed to their digital online collection over the last few years. This year, we have also taken part in county-wide history lectures organized by the library. We have also created historical displays for various County of Brant tourism events, the Paris Agricultural Society, and provide historical research to various county departments and committees. We do outreach events to local seniors' homes, and we run tours for many local groups. We host hundreds of local and international visitors and tourists to our museum every year. Our organization is entirely run by volunteers who range in age from 16 to 86. In 2017, our volunteers logged over 4,000 on-site hours and countless hours in their homes and out in the community. We depend on financial support in the form of memberships, donations, fundraising, proceeds from our gift shop, and most importantly, grants. For more information about the Paris Museum and Historical Society, find us online at theparismuseum.com or follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you very much for your attention. And so we're also here just to let you know that our budget ask this year is for $20,000. And we hope that you'll look favorably upon that request. And I'm happy to answer any questions, should anyone have any.
Any questions? Councillor House?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. As our community grows, the people who live here have expressed that they want to, that maintaining the charm of the small towns is a top priority. And I'm convinced that efforts such as the museum are a key part of that. My question is, up until now, has there been any coordination between your museum, the Heritage Committee, the library, the tourism department, and do you see opportunities for more of that moving forward?
We certainly see opportunities for that moving forward. I could say that there aren't any formal liaisons, but we certainly have lots of informal ones. As you could see in the video, we work with the library system, we contribute to their digital collection. We have done the history lectures this year. We have talked to tourism about potential opportunities to help with cultural tourist activities. We have worked with other organizations that have come forward. It's always, we have no paid staff. So we're entirely run by volunteers, and we have a big, big job that our volunteers do. So our primary mandate is to make everything accessible to the community, but we also have over 40,000 artifacts that we have to assess, collect, store, maintain, and that's a lot of work. So there's so much opportunity. We just regret we don't have enough time to really address all of it. But we're certainly open to any opportunity to collaborate. You're welcome.
Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Three to the delegation. Thank you for your presentation. Three questions. The $20,000, is that for a specific purpose? Is that just for general operating? Second question, will we see a copy of your budget at our budget time? And then the third question is, how does that $20,000 compare to last year's grant?
Okay. These were the things that we thought we would do with the $20,000, should you be kind enough to give it to us. We want to continue the second year of a 5-year project to maximize space for our community visitors. We have, at the moment, we have a warehouse space, an exhibit space, and a workspace. We've had to sort of claw into the exhibit space because we've run out of workroom. We have a lot of researchers now, lots of volunteers, and often they were coming in and not having a place to sit and do anything. So we had to sort of reconfigure things. We are always reorganizing our warehouse space because we just have so many artifacts and so much that we have to store. And of course, we have to store it properly. We can't just fling it in a box. That doesn't work with artifacts. So the second thing we wanted to do is to fund some off-site storage for our collections to ensure their current relevance. We have large items, and some of them you will see here, that we cannot store. We have to turn down people's efforts to donate large items to us. We simply have nowhere to put them. So we're looking now at off-site storage. The next thing we want to do is expand our volunteer experience and capacity by providing external training and workshops. We have wonderful volunteers. Many of them are museum professionals that give us their time for free, like Stephanie. Many of them are keen amateurs, and there are opportunities for us to train them. We have one person I'm thinking of right now, for example, who would like to take a couple of courses through the Ontario Museum Association, and those courses are going to run about $1,000 for 2. So we would like to be able to train them to be able to do that, because then they can help us focus on protecting the artifacts that we have in the proper way. And we want to continue to archive the Scott, Remus, and Bemrose collections that we have. We had a wonderful donation last year from the Scott family. It was literally about 10 or 15 boxes. With original materials from the 700s all the way into 1990s. As you can imagine, it's painstaking, and our volunteers have spent hundreds of hours going through the boxes, sorting everything out, archiving, making sure they're properly prepared and stored, and then, of course, we want to exhibit it, because we want everybody to see what we have. That's why we do it. And the next thing we wanted to do was to replace our broken large-screen TV. But I'm happy to say we had a donation and we've already done that. So we'll put that money toward other good things. I think the third question was how much did we ask for last year? We asked for $15,000 last year, and the year before that we asked for 20. This year we're asking for 20. Did I answer all your questions?
Yeah, I think you'll provide us with the budget.
Yes, in fact, you have it. We've already provided that to county staff, so you should have our grant request and our budget.
Councillor Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, thank you for your presentation. You talk about the 40,000 artifacts and having to store them and stuff like that, and that you've outgrown your current location. I think we all know that. So how big of a location would you need in order to, and you use the words you want to display things so people can see them. How big of a space would you need to display everything, all your 40,000?
We believe we need about 10,000 square feet. And please don't ask me how much we have now, because I don't remember. Do you know?
No.
I can get you that information, though.
Something to keep in mind for museum collections is that often you don't display everything all the time. So it's all about having living collections and living exhibits that really reflect the times that we live in. So we have relevant exhibits where we put different artifacts and different archival material together in a way that tells a story. And then we change it so that every time you come, you can learn a different piece of our community's history and different pieces of different people's stories. So part of the space that we need is because you should come out. We invite you all to come out to the museum on an afternoon that we're open. We are bustling with volunteers of all ages. We're talking seniors, we're talking kids that are doing high school hours, working together, intergenerational. It's incredible because we have some people that are amazing at technology and some people that are really diligent about cataloging, and it's this really incredible intergenerational collaboration. And part of the space requirement is giving space for people to do that. So right now, we're having to choose between displaying artifacts and having these living exhibits and then having a place for this incredible community work to happen. And we want to be able to provide a space where we can do everything with all of our incredible volunteers.
Thank you. And so that 10,000 would incorporate that as well? That would give sufficient space for that, or is that just for artifacts?
No, we think 10,000 would do us for now at least, yes. Yes, that would give us a space for storage, for exhibits, for archival stuff, and for workrooms.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you for your presentation. And the last delegation is going to be Lynn Cardinal.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and councillors. I also have with me Pam Hubick, who is the manager of Shady Acres Residential Community. Just like to take a couple of moments and let you watch our PowerPoint presentation, and then I'll speak to our request. Therefore, I'm here this evening to represent the large delegation of residents who are here this evening with us. If all of the residents who came, and I thank you all so much for supporting us this evening, just raise your hands to let the councillors know who's here, who you are, who we are. As the homeowners of the residential land lease community of seniors at Shady Acres, we are here to request that a zoning bylaw requiring us to vacate our homes annually during the month of February continue to be waived indefinitely, subsequent to a zoning amendment to allow us as residents to remain in our homes year-round. We are a group of seniors, homeowners. We live harmoniously in the community and we support one another. We check in with the elderly, those who are alone, and we ensure that those who are unable to drive are taken to medical appointments and have other essential errands like their groceries, prescription pickups done for them. We have the type of neighbors who come by and cut the grass or shovel the snow when residents are unable to do it for themselves. We care for one another's pets and watch each other's homes if our neighbor has to be away for even a day. When anyone needs a hand, there's always someone else who's ready to offer their support. Many of our residents grew up, worked, or ran businesses, raised their families, and have maintained relationships within Brant County. We patronize local businesses in Burford and Brant County as a whole. We have our pharmacists, dentists, doctors, lawyers, and other professional services upon which we rely regularly and we support in the surrounding community. The homeowners in our community are primarily seniors who came here to seek affordable retirement living and a comfortable rural lifestyle. Many of our residents are pensioners who have paid their dues over their working years and they now have a limited means of support. Others, like myself, have happily left behind the hectic urban lifestyle of Toronto for the more relaxed and leisurely pace of the senior living community. Some others have sold everything they had to become debt-free and invested their proceeds into our park model homes, which are not trailers. As Councillors Miller and Laferriere, and I just heard this evening from Councillor Laferriere that 2 other councillors have been through our community, so I thank those 2 other councillors for coming. Councillor Bell, and I'm not sure, Mr. House, Councillor House, thank you both very much for coming. As all 4 of these councillors can attest from their visits, our homes are mounted on blocks, our perimeters are insulated and skirted, with beautifully landscaped lots that are maintained by the individual homeowner. Each home is connected to its own source of propane and hydro and has an independent HVAC system within the winterized unit. We are serviced by the community well and a brand new sewage treatment and septic system. Most community residents have invested over and above the purchase price of the original park model home into improvements and upgrades in order to make their homes even more conducive to year-round living. Our homes are static and immovable. They are now permanently fixed within the Shady Acres community. We have little or no other affordable alternative, as the senior living condo apartment in Burford currently has a wait list of over 100 residents. Just as important is the fact that a great number of our residents do have pets who would also require alternative housing when families are absent from the home. Pet owners in our community rely heavily on each other to check in on our pets and homes when we happen to be away. This will place a further financial and emotional burden on us as seniors when we look for somewhere to live during the bylaw enforcement period. And our residents would still be expected to pay the land lease fees, utility fees, and so on, in addition to the unexpected cost that's going to be incurred when we are having to live elsewhere. Over and above these financial implications affecting the community vacating our homes for a month is the hardship that this is going to place on our most vulnerable members, those who have the health concerns requiring medical attention and who receive in-home care. We have many elderly residents, none of whom are here this evening, who are no longer capable of traveling from their homes for even a day, who will feel insecure out of their own environment. We have those who are living with cancer, those who are recovering from or awaiting surgery, suffering from chronic heart or lung disease, and Alzheimer's disease. Many of these community residents receive support from CCAC, which they will lose access to if they are forced to be housed elsewhere during 1 month out of the calendar year. We have residents now in their 80s and 90s who literally have nowhere else to go, even if they were capable of leaving our community. This also applies to the vast majority of us, as though we may be physically capable of leaving our homes, we lack the financial means to travel elsewhere for that length of time. Our families are either too far away or unwilling or unable to accommodate us in their homes for that period.
Lynn, sorry, one more minute.
Okay. For the residents suffering from Alzheimer's, cancer, or heart disease, being moved from their familiar surrounding of home will ultimately have a devastating effect. The bylaw has apparently gone unenforced for the past 17 or more years. This has set a precedent giving both longtime and new residents to understand we would be permitted to remain in our homes. We see no purposeful reason or rationale behind the county's decision to enforce this bylaw. The negative impact on homeowners definitely outweighs the positive gain the enforcement might achieve. Our hope is that council members will acknowledge and understand our position, supported by the numerous letters that everyone in this room joining me this evening has written, and I've attempted to summarize in this brief. We ask you as council members, our elected body, to represent our interests in the matters pertaining. We are grateful for your time this evening and your consideration in taking action to move forward in rescinding the enforcement of this bylaw in 2019 and beyond. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your presentation. Do we have any questions? Councillor Howes?
Yeah, so I did tour through you, Chair. I did tour through yesterday after your invitation, and it looks like a great place to live. It is obviously a wonderful community, and I can appreciate where everyone would not want to vacate for a month. That I understand that sentiment. I do have a technical question for you. As I was driving around, I was very impressed by the dwellings, and just like you said in your presentation, these are not trailers. These are lovely, lovely homes. I saw some under renovation and making them even better. My technical question goes, again, back to your presentation. You said they're built to CSA standards. How does that fit into the building code? And if renovations are being done, are you, and this is a kind of a rookie question because I don't know, but are you exempt from the building code, or are the homes and the renovations done with consideration to the building code, or I just don't know how all that works?
First of all, I think the home you saw is actually currently being built. The one you probably noticed is actually across from mine, and it's being skirted and having the enclosure put underneath it. As far as, I'm going to defer that question to Pam, if she may know, because she is our manager and she would know more about the legal aspects of that.
Thank you very much for coming out and viewing our park. We really appreciate it. We don't have building codes, however, we do have insurance codes. Every home is set up according to an insurance code. There are no renovations done to those homes unless they are brought forth in front of us. There must be a plan, there must be a design. They must all be professionally manufactured before any of those homes are changed. We already have in place sizes, designs that we allow in the park. So that's pretty much how we do it. And we have to stick to our insurance codes. Each one of those homes must be insured. And so therefore we have to follow up on those codes. Each one of those homes also has to be inspected every 72 hours, which brings us to a huge problem. If, for example, all of my residents, all 46 of those homes have to be evacuated, and if there's a power outage in Brant County, I'm not sure how we would ever be able to run around and maintain those homes and make sure that there's no water leaks or issues that arise from that. That's causing, I think, a great deal of destruction. Right now, if, say, Lynn was to go away on a vacation, neighbors on either side would be checking her home you know, it's all taken care of that way. I would like to say I'm glad that Lynn pointed out that a lot of our residents are here tonight. We're business people. We're not looking for funding of any kind. We're just looking to ask you not to disturb our residents. They've not been disturbed since we've owned the park in 2005. It'd be very hard, especially for our older residents, as Lynn said. We've also been backed by, excuse me, Jonathan Weaver and his wife Kathy Weaver are here, and they have twin streams. They have a similar problem to us, a different entity, but a similar problem to us. We are offering affordable housing in the county, and we'd like to continue to do so.
Councillor Laferriere.
Yes, thank you for your presentation, and thank you for everyone coming out tonight. A couple of questions from my tour. There was some concern because Oxford has 12-month occupancy rules, correct?
Yes.
And that was brought up. I just want that known here. And I want to also discuss, maybe on the record, because somebody who was taking the tour with me said, you know, the folks there would be willing to work with the county on issues specifically. For example, and just to get on the record, would your facility be willing to do one-way laneways and have parking no parking on the laneways so that emergency vehicles would have no issue getting through?
Absolutely. Each home does have its own driveway. We do keep the roads clear, and we're quite willing to work on any plan that would be necessary to make that happen.
Excellent. And also, you talked about insurance. Is there a concern amongst residents that if you're asked to leave for a month and the entire community knows that you're gone for a month, that you may be the target of theft or squatting?
Yes, definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you. At present, the OPP has no concerns with us. We don't have them out there. They may drive by our parks, but they don't have any concerns with us. We don't ever really have a time where we've ever needed to call them. However, if you clear out our park, clear out our community, there's going to be a lot of concern. And if I'm the only one left there to
monitor everyone.
To monitor that.
And 5, asking that the bylaw be rescinded then, and council said apparently yes, we won't enforce the bylaw. He is still living in the community, receiving CCAC. He and his wife are at home this evening, enjoying a cuppa, I'm sure. And I really don't understand why the 11-month bylaw is still on the books. It requires a redesignation of our community or a rescinding of the bylaw.
Has anybody ever offered you a rationale from the county as to why you move out in one?
This is pushed through. Even though our plan is to move forward with continuing business, continuing to be there, this will cause a lot of heartache and a lot of problems for the people in our park.
Councillor Gatward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the manager. I noticed in the presentation that the homes are considered permanent structures. Can you tell me if each one is taxed individually by MPAC and they receive their own tax bill, or are the taxes paid for all these permanent small homes paid for by the park owner?
Paid for by the park owner.
Paid for by the park owner?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, that's correct.
Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to either Lynn or Pam, just to be clear, because I heard Lynn say the owners have put in a planning application, is that correct?
Yes. Yes,
That must have been just recent, I'm guessing.
Okay. Yeah, our lawyers have put in.
I don't want to get into the weeds too much, but do you know if that's a zoning application, or would that require an official plan amendment, or do you know at this point?
At this point, it's just a request for them to look at a plan amendment.
Okay. Currently you're zone a trailer park, and if I go a little bit to the west in Oxford, there's another trailer park, I believe Willow Lake.
Yes, that's correct.
That I don't know what, I understand that is a 12-month trailer park, so I guess we'll wait and see when it comes forward.
If you step across the line into Oxford County, and they too also do a wonderful job of offering affordable housing, you know, no matter what end of the county you look at or what entity of people you're looking at, whether it be seniors or other folks, looking for the affordable housing that we can offer, Oxford County does a tremendous job in that most of the parks there are 12-month parks. You can go there and move in and not have any issues at all. Willow Lake is very similar to us in that they are also a general coach dealer. They also offer made in Canada beautiful homes that people can buy and move into the parks.
And as far as I know, we both have the same provincial government, so I look forward to seeing the application when it comes forward at planning.
That's one of the things that was really quite boggling to us was the fact that we are all in the same province, but different rules are applying once you cross the line.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor.
Any other questions? Well, thank you for your presentation. I'm sorry that I haven't been out to the trailer park or your community yet. I promise I'll be there by the end of the week. I feel badly for you people. You have the ear of this mayor. I'm a rookie to the chair, so I'm not sure exactly why we're doing this to you, but it doesn't sound, no matter, I spent all day talking to staff. I didn't like the answers I was getting. I didn't like the way things were being perceived. You do have the ear of this mayor, and I will be out before the end of the week, and we're going to fix things up, I hope. So thank you for coming.
On behalf of the community, Mayor Miller, we thank you very much for your kind words.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, that's the end of the delegations. How do you want to handle this? Councillor Miller.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make two motions. I'd like to refer 4A, B, and C to the budget process.
Seconder? Mark, Ferrier? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And how do we want to deal with the third or the fourth one?
Well, I stepped aside.
Mark?
Maybe it's a question for staff. We learned about a temporary. We learned about a temporary zoning exemption.
Yeah.
In one of our. We learned about a temporary zoning exemption that could be up to 3 years and renewable if need be. Is that a potential option for something like this?
Mr. Bradley?
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. So it's my understanding that a application is pending or has been made to bring the property into compliance. The county policy is that if an application to bring a property into compliance to the zoning bylaws made, then we will stay enforcement. So that is, I believe, the solution that our solicitor has worked out with the solicitor for the community. And at this point, we would stay enforcement while that application was being made. That application would have to come forward to this council to bring it into compliance, basically to remove the 11-month residency qualifier. So that's in place now, and I believe that should address the immediate concern until that application comes forward to councils.
Okay. Councillor Miller.
Can we go back one motion? The motion, I know we passed it, but I'll refer A and C to the budget, and because B I declared a pecuniary interest on. So if we could get someone to make a motion on B, and then I'll make a motion for D. Councillor
Pierce.
I'll make that motion.
Looking at for a second, Mark. Thank you, Councillor Ferrier. All those in favor? Any discussion? Councillor Gatward.
Since B is being referred to budget, I'm hoping that before that they receive a copy of the budgets for those two programs that we're requesting funding.
I believe both delegations said they would.
Yeah.
So, okay, thank you. Any other concerns? Call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed and carried. Thank you. Okay, so thank you for coming out. D, I thought we did that. We didn't do D. Okay, so I'm looking for a motion. Councillor Miller.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I want to ask the CEO, do we need a motion for the stay of enforcement, or does that just goes without a motion?
Your Worship, through you, so the county policy is that we would stay enforcement. We would not enforce the 11-month 11-month rule. So if an application's been made, it's my understanding that an application has been made. At that point, then they are trying to bring the property into compliance, and we will not enforce the 11-month rule.
Okay, so I won't make a motion to that effect, given that that's our policy anyways, but I will move that that presentation be received and the presentation be referred to planning staff as part of their planning application.
Looking for a seconder? Councillor Howes, any more discussion? All those in favor? Passed. Thank you. Merry Christmas. We'll call a short recess just to let everyone be on their way. Education session, November 20th. Councillor Pierce?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If nobody has that, I'll move to receive all three, but I think somebody should have it.
Somebody has it on their desk. Somebody has it on their desk. 5A.
What's the number on it?
Sorry,
be
through you,
patient.
Mr. Mayor, I'm very new, and this was just on my desk, and I didn't know why. It says 5 approval minutes from previous meeting. Now, my understanding and point of information is that, being as I wasn't on council in an official capacity last meeting, I can't move these.
Councillor Wheat, that would be great.
They're not signed yet, so I'll get signatures all before them right now. It'll be moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Pierce that the following minutes be approved, and that's the record of the meeting of Council-elect Staff Education Session November 20th, and the Brant County Council meeting on November 27th, and the inaugural council meeting of December 1st. I personally will have a question on bullet point 2. First of all, so I'd ask for approval of bullet point 1 and bullet point 3, which is meeting of Council-elect Senior Staff Education Session of the inaugural council meeting of December 1st, 2018. Seeking support. All those in favor?
All those in favor? Yep. Opposed?
Now the second bullet point, Brant County Council meeting on November 27th, 2018. I have a question, and I think I can deliver it from here, and that'll be to our mayor and our clerk, and it doesn't matter to me which one answers. And that's on page 25 under other business. Moved by Councillor Wheat, second by Councillor Carty, that the correspondence be sent to Canada Post and copied to the local MP, requesting that Canada Post reconsider its direction to require the relocation of mailbox at 83 Brant Road. My question is to the mayor and clerk, has that letter been sent and copied to MP McColman's office?
I know that it's been anything yet.
Okay, if it has done in the very, very near future.
It's been.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Seeking support.
All those in favor of B? Thank
And
you.
I'll get the proper signatures now.
Thank you. Any other business arising from the minutes? If not, 7A, consent items to be approved.
So 7A, consent item to be approved for the purchase of the, awarding the purchase of winter control equipment for 4 tandem cab and chassis trucks to Viking Seabays. Moved by myself, seconded by Mark LaFerrier.
Any conversation? Everyone's clear? All those in favor? Oh, Councillor Pierce?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just for clarification on it, so now that it appears, if I'm reading it correctly, we've got a cheaper price on it, so we're going to go with the cheaper price and cancel out the other one, and we're able to get out of that other contract with no penalties?
Mr. Walton can answer.
Mr. Walton will answer the question.
Through the chair to Councillor Pierce. What's happening is, so we're extending an existing contract is what we're doing. So there's an existing contract with, there's two different contracts. There's the contract to buy the trucks,
right,
which is separate, not what we're talking about tonight, but to outfit the last 2 trucks that we bought, we're asking council to extend the contract with Viking Clives to provide the snow removal equipment for those trucks at the prices except the changes made by the tariffs that already exist from the previous tender. And they're willing to do that till the end of 2018.
Thank you.
Councillor Gatward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the General Manager. I wondered why they mentioned the Metro Freightliners purchase back in July. Like that was a separate purchase from the one we're approving tonight, correct? I think that's why Councillor Pierce was wondering what he was.
Through the mayor to Councillor Gatward. Yes, the purchase of the trucks was approved in July. I wasn't the general manager then, so I wasn't in on writing our report. I'm not really quite sure why we didn't bring all this forward at the same time, but so it probably would have made it a lot simpler to understand.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. So we're going to call the vote. We didn't vote yet? Okay. Call the vote. Closed. Carried. Thank you. 7B, consent items to be received.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I have 7B and C, and it's moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Miller, that the following consent items be received as information. And they're listed there, items 1 through 12.
Is there any item someone wants to pull out or discuss? Councillor Bell?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The item I'd like to discuss is 7B, item 4, which refers only to the Catholic District School Board and the development charge that they're adding. Are we going to see the same from the Grand Erie District School Board?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So this is just a notification. The school boards basically do compute and levy their own development charge. And so this, I believe this is just a standard notice. So it would depend on what their schedule of their development charge bylaw is. Ours is coming up this year. Theirs would the development charge bylaw has a 5-year lifespan to it. So with the public school board, they also are allowed to compute and levy a development charge, but it would depend on the schedule of their bylaw expiration. So,
and for my information, do they do that all of their billing separately from the county? So when we ask for a development charge, do we lump it all together, or do they, as the school board, separately go to the developer?
Through your worship, we collect our development charge at the building permit. I am not. I will have to get back to you on that. I'm not familiar with whether we collected at building permit or not. I don't. Ms. Hewitt, who's our more up to speed on development charges, is absent this evening. So I will find that out. We collect our development charge at the building permit. That's in the Development Charges Act. I'm not sure what the school board's collection mechanism is, but I can find that out. It's a good question.
Councillor Gatward, do you have something more for 7B4?
I was just going to say that I think that we collect it for the school board, the development charges, but I could be wrong. But I think I have seen it in reports.
Okay, we'll wait for it to come from staff then. So we'll put it back in. We'll vote on the whole package then. All those in favor? Opposed and carried. Thank you. Committee reports. Canesville Community Center.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Gatward, the Canesville Community Center Advisory Committee public meetings from November 26, 2018 be received as information.
Thank you. Any questions to the chair? If not, motion to accept. Councillor Pierce? Oh, he's got it. Okay. All right. Thank you.
We just voted.
We just voted. Planning Advisory Committee.
Moved by myself, second by Member Bell, that the Planning Advisory Committee report of December 4th be approved, noting there are 2 items.
Any questions to the chair? Thank you. Corporate development? Oh, we have to vote, sorry. Call the vote. All those in favor, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, it's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Pierce that the Corporate Development Committee report of December 10th, 2018 be approved.
Any questions to the chair? Councillor Wheat?
Yes. Not so much a question, but a comment. And I'd like to lump starting at number 11 through to number 19. I'm not going to support the whole deal from 11 to 19, and I don't want to center out any individuals because they're all great individuals. But in last week's Expositor, I noticed an article about the City of Brantford looking for members of their advisory boards. And I really feel when we had a rule that you needed to live in the County of Brant to apply for our advisory boards, that those individuals have an opportunity to serve on the boards in the City of Brantford because the City of Brantford is looking for them. Yet we're supporting them being here. And they're all great individuals, but I just feel when there's opportunities in their own municipality, they should be serving in their own municipality. When we had a rule, when you applied, that you must be a citizen of the County of Brant. And that's my comment. So I don't want to remove them and vote individually and vote against them. But that's my comment on them, so I won't support the whole deal. So 11 through 19 doesn't have my heart and soul support, but I will support it because I know that I'm in the minority.
Okay. Councillor Chambers?
Just a comment, Mr. Mayor, and not to be argumentative, but we don't have a rule of residency on our appointments. There's nothing in a bylaw, there's nothing written anywhere, so we don't have a rule. What occurred was the advertisement that went out seeking appointees or seeking volunteers for appointments stated that they needed to be a County of Brant residents. It was in the advertisement, but from my research, I've seen no rule or no bylaw that restricts residency, and I could be wrong on that, but that's just my comment.
Well, with that information coming forward, that does change. It would have changed a few things, I think, when we were doing our appointments. So I would hate to think that a typo from staff in a ad to the newspaper would change things as drastically as it may have just done. So we need to be clear, and maybe a report come through and let us know who's right and who's wrong. And not that we need to pin blame on it, but it would have changed the results of the appointments, I believe. I was on the appointment committee. I chaired it. Actually, you chaired it. And it would have changed things. So we have to know what's going on, what the rules are. So thank you for bringing it to our attention. Councillor Wheat?
If I might further, I wasn't looking to argue. I just was commenting on it. And one further thing I had it pointed out to me by a citizen who's on a citizen committee, that we have a councillor chairing a citizen committee. And I really feel that citizens should chair a citizen committee. And I'm not naming individuals because they're all good individuals, good people.
Councillor Chambers?
Just again, Mr. Mayor, according to my reading of the procedural bylaw, there is no stipulation that it has to be a county resident on a committee. It's not in the procedural bylaw, which puts forth the bylaw. So all I was doing was correcting Councillor Wheat is that he's alluded to a rule, and all I'm saying is there is no rule.
Well, we made our appointments and our selections because we were told there was a rule. I was told that you had to live in the County of Brant before you could be considered on a committee or an appointment by the committee.
Again, just to be clear, the advertisement that went out seeking volunteers said that you had to be a county resident. All I'm saying is that our procedural bylaw does not stipulate that. And
that's all you have to say.
That caused confusion, if you recall, at the nomination committee meeting, and that's why we've moved forward in this manner.
Perfect. Councillor Pierce?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, through you, a couple things. So first of all, as far as having a councillor as the chair of the committee, it's the committee that chooses the councillor. So that's kind of up to that committee. And as far as with the having to live in the county, I do recall the conversation that it was the ad that was in the paper, and we suggested at the time that we were going through this, because the ad was in the paper at that time when we were choosing them, that we would have to choose residents from the county, and that's when we brought in at the first official meeting to add these other ones in. So it, I think it's really only 14 to 18 here that have anything to do with that.
All right. Councillor Ferrier?
That's my recollection as well, through you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Mayor. That said, we were consistent, and just to let the folks know and on the public record, we were consistent with our decision making this time around based on the role we had. We made a decision in the moment based on the issue, and at least we were consistent, because part of the rationale being that people may have not applied for consideration because of the ad. So again, we were consistent. We'll be consistent in further years, but we'll be consistent with clarification in future years.
But I don't think being consistent solves the problem. I think I was never given an option or told that I could maybe run another article or another ad correctly to get the right people in the right chairs of the right committees. This has never come to my attention until right now. And if we made a typo or we made a mistake in an ad, we should have been given the option to choose another date to do our appointments or our committees after we ran something that was right. I don't understand why that's okay. Councillor Wheat.
I'd like to withdraw because I did not want to cause a problem.
No, I don't think you caused problems. I think you brought something to everyone's attention that we went through a whole process and we eliminated people that were very capable and probably more suited maybe to sit on some committees and chairs, and we did it because of a typo or something that we did wrong in an ad, and I don't think that that's acceptable. So having said that out loud, I guess we just move on, but the appointments are reviewed annually. Maybe we can do something before then. I mean, 4 years is a long time to have the wrong people sitting on chairs and committees in my eyes. But
they're the right people. I'm sorry, I should never have brought it up. I regret bringing it up.
Never bring up a problem that needs to be solved. So thank you for bringing it up. Okay, we're on to, did we vote on that? We need a vote for the, we need a vote, so. Are you, yeah, you're not going to vote. You're not going to, but you're the one that wasn't happy with things.
No, I'm happy. I just pointed it out. I'm sorry I caused a problem.
Okay. Okay, who's going to call the vote?
I suggest you call the question. All in favor?
All in favor? Oh my God, thank you. Carried. Oh my goodness. 9A, staff reports.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Miller. The fire hall projects in Cairnsville, Onondaga, and Scotland. And take this as presented and read. Hopefully everybody read it.
Okay, questions. There are going to be questions. Councillor Pierce first.
Just more of a comment, if I could, Mr. Mayor, through you. I think this is fantastic that we're at the stage now that we're going to get these 3 new fire halls. I was coming through Burgessville last weekend, and I happened to notice at Burgessville, my nephew, who's a volunteer in Norwich, it's really boosted the if you want to call it, the confidence of that staff, of the men and women in Burgessville. So I know we have some fantastic volunteer fire departments here in the county, and I think this is great. These folks deserve this, and maybe it'll give a boost to them as well.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's probably aimed at the the Public Works Department, if they were, oh sorry, it's Community Services, I got it wrong last time as well. But my understanding is that the actual costs that we are now going to commit to are quite significantly higher than the estimated costs. We all learn, but my question is, have we been able to roll that learning into our estimating tools for any future work that comes along? Because we don't want to be surprised twice by this kind of change.
Mr. Radley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And through you, in the context of how we actually move forward these projects is important in that question. I'll just spend a couple minutes and remind Council of that context. Staff hadn't brought these projects forward. There had been discussion at the council table for many years about them. And late in the 2016 budget process, a request was made, can we get these projects into this budget? And so very quickly, and I think it was all done probably one night, we said, well, okay, let's put the projects forward, and we'll use the Mount Pleasant Fire Hall as the example of that. And it was a 49, I have the number here, it was a 4,900 square foot facility, and we paid about $194 a square foot for about just under $1 million, $969,000. So we pushed that forward as basically a placeholder. But what we hadn't done at that point, we hadn't done any consultation with the halls and the staff, who as was mentioned, they have to occupy and utilize these facilities. We didn't exactly know where they were going to be. We didn't know how large they were going to be. We didn't know any of that stuff. So we put those budget numbers forward as placeholders. And then we went through land acquisition, and then we brought concepts in front of council and committee for consideration and approval. And then we went through into detailed design and consultation with the station. So, looking back, I always say that if you plan something well, it goes well. And in this case, we kind of push them forward without a business case, without a needs analysis. But partly to get the projects going, because they had been lagging. I think would be correct to say lagging for a number of years. They were identified back in 2008 as required, and so this was 2016. So I think there was a desire to get them going. So I will certainly wear this one. I was the one that made those budget proposals. And I think usually our budgeting is pretty good because we do more homework, and in this case we didn't do that homework. We pushed them forward. As debt finance projects, having because we're not raising money from the tax levy and holding that money, maybe it's less critical to have a good budget number going forward. So generally, I think if you read the report, we've gone through a detailed design process, consultation with the stations. We had a very good response to a very open public tender, and I'm quite confident in the fees, and I'm quite confident that these are the right builds for our fire stations.
Yeah, I don't think I'm taking any exception to that. Ultimately, I think you've got a really good product. It's just that as we bring forward more capital projects, we want at the beginning to have some greater confidence level in the costs of those projects. The one I'm thinking of, you'll know, Michael, is the community health hub, which we have to be pretty certain about that cost before we move forward.
And Your Worship, if I could follow up on that. So the Community Health Hub, I think, is a good example where we've done a number of reports and we're continuing to tweak that business case. So I'm carrying as I'll mention, we're at $283 a square foot on average for these builds. We're carrying, I think, $315 a square foot for our health hub project. So I feel quite confident. Of course, I've done a lot of research, a lot of business planning for those projects. I have quite a bit of confidence. None of that was done when we brought these forward. It's a good example, but it's a reminder that some things do have to come forward very quickly to get queued up and to get moving. So it is one of the context of why these projects are the way they are is I think justifiable. It's just a product of how we went about it. So,
thank you, Councillor Gatward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I think that since 2016, the amounts were put in. There was probably no inflationary dollars added over the last 3 or 2 years to increase the amount of dollars for these capital expenditures, and we need to make sure we do that when we do long-term budgeting so that there's no surprises when it comes time to do the project and it's $1 million more than we thought because we haven't added through the years the extra costs. but our staff does that, correct, Mr. Bradley?
Councillor Miller.
There was a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Through you, Your Worship. Yeah, we do that. We will bring updated budget figures through the budget for previously approved capital projects. In this case, my error was probably that I didn't advance these projects when the approvals came forward this spring. But I think at that point we knew, we would be going to tender. We'd have a much stronger, obviously, if we go to tender, we know exactly what they're going to cost. We made that decision at the time. So,
Councillor Miller.
Just one comment is, ouch. That's a huge difference. And three, Mr. Mayor, to Michael, that 6.5 million, are we debenturing the whole amount? Like, I know I thought it was in the budget, $1 million, whatever. Did we not put some away in previous budgets, and do we not have development charges? Could you just kind of break down where that $6.5 million is coming from?
Through Your Worship, it is a debt finance project. It always has been identified as a debt project. This one and the OPP station were both part of our debt plan. In terms of development charges, there is no development charge currently, development charge funds levied for these projects. They are not driven by growth for the most part. They're not driven by population growth. They're in areas of the county that doesn't have a lot of growth. Some growth, but not, it'd be hard for us to make a case that would be defendable in front of the board that we could levy a development charge for these projects. So I think the one outlier of that could be Canesville, which may have a growth component to it. And so I think we will examine that when we do the background study this year and see if we can include some of the Canesville costs, which then may drive that debenture cost down.
Okay, I'm pretty sure that we did put policing in development charges last time. I recall that. So I think there is a bit of money in there.
Through you, Mr. Chair, for the OPP station, there was a small amount of that bill that was development charge eligible. It was included in the background study. These projects are not in the existing background study, so we can't fund it from development charges. But it does not stop us from putting them into the upcoming development charge background study.
Okay, thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to be clear on this, these buildings are replacing 3 60-some-year-old fire stations. And I think, yes, it's maybe more than we expected, but things have changed since 2016 when we looked at this originally, and especially since when we built Mount Pleasant. Fire marshal has different rules and regulations are being put in and whatnot, and all for health and safety, which is a big thing. They're all on new sites pretty well, will be on new sites. So I think this is a good deal. This will serve 61 of our volunteers right now. I think that's pretty good. I'm calling for a recorded vote, Mr. Mayor, at the appropriate time.
Any other questions? Councillor Wheat?
It's not a question, but I'm supporting this, and it disappoints me to see members of this committee wanting to delay it. We've known from the beginning we were going to do this. We've known for 2 years, and we've known for 2 years it was going to be into long-term debt financing. This is not the time to be stalling this project.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Gatward?
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just because people are asking questions doesn't mean that they're trying to stall this project. So I don't know where Councillor Wheat's thinking is, but I don't think anybody's trying to stall it. We all know that these stations are needed. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Bell?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To Councillor Wheat, I'm not trying to stall. I'm just trying to learn for the future.
Councillor Ferrier?
I'd like to call the vote.
Call the vote?
Yes.
And a recorded vote? So, being brand new to this chair, the recorded, Heather does it?
Well, you call for a recorded vote, and then any member, he'll say all in favor, and those in favor will stand. I'll record who's in favor, and then you can sit down, and then the mayor will call out those opposed, and same thing, you stand if you're opposed, and I'll record those. It'll take a couple minutes, so don't get up and sit down quickly, but that's how that works.
Is there any other conversation or concerns before we have a recorded vote? Okay, so I call the vote. Yep. All those in favor? Yep. Thank you. Nine B, Michael? 9B, page 4.
Your Worship, through you, I just wanted to provide one update before you consider the matter in front of you. As indicated in the report, we did a website, website-driven survey of any resident. As of yesterday, we closed it yesterday at 4:30 p.m. We had 1,214 responses. 801 of the respondents voted yes. That's 65% yes to having retail cannabis in the community, with the balance voting no. So at this point, we have closed that survey at this point. What I would note is that survey seems to be fairly consistent with some of the other municipal surveys we've seen, and they're indicated in the report. I just wanted to update committee on that before you move forward with considering the matters.
Questions? Councillor Pierce?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, a comment, and the online survey was, a great idea, and I appreciate that. And I know there was some other surveys done through social media and that sort of thing. But I think part of the, and I don't want to call it a problem, but the issue was the fact that it was just simply put as a question, do you want it or don't? There was nothing indicating, what happens if you say yes? What happens if you say no? There was no indication of what the impact of either one of those answers were. So as much as I appreciate the fact that we did this and the online poll is great to get the input from our community, that's what we want to do. I just wanted to make a point the fact that potentially some of those folks that voted were just voting yes or no just on that. So again, we need to be cautious as to great idea to put them out there, but in what context were they voting yes or no? Did they know everything that went behind their vote, or were they just voting yes or no on that?
Councillor Ferrier.
Just to clarify, while that's true of the SurveyMonkey survey itself, there was a link, brant.ca/cannabis, that did have background information, and all of the information that we received as council was also available online through that, and also in the minutes on the SIRE site. So just to throw that out there for those who were interested, that was there. And in addition to that, there were, I believe, 3 separate newspaper articles, at least from the Expositor, and I believe 1 from the Air News, that all went out to the public as well. So yes, while some people will always make uninformed decisions, I do believe a lot of information was out there for folks to make an informed decision, including from the county.
Any other questions? Councillor Gatward?
And not regarding the online survey, you're asking for questions about anything?
Yes, anything to do with this.
I would like to draw to council's attention, as part of the addendum package, there is a letter that was sent, and unfortunately, I had stated that there would be a recommendation from the Impaired and Distracted Driving Committee. And on Thursday when we had our meeting, unfortunately, a member who said he was coming didn't show up, so we didn't have quorum, and we could not. And I realize it's a lengthy letter to read now at the meeting, but there's a lot of good information in that letter. And the bottom line is the last paragraph that says, after careful consideration, the Brantford and Six Nations Impaired and Distracted Driving Committee recommends that the Mayor and Council choose to opt out of the Province of Ontario's plan to allow cannabis retail stores in the City of Brantford and the County of Brant, with the understanding that the municipality do further research and study, and that the effects on other municipalities that have chosen to allow retail cannabis stores in their municipalities. This choice would allow the municipality to opt back in to the retail cannabis date should we wish. Respectfully submitted for consideration by Lori Polk, who's the chair of the Brant-Brantford Six Nations and Impaired, Distracted, and Driving Advisory Committee. That is a city committee, and so this letter was written to the city. They're not considering their position till January sometime, but I asked Mr. Polk to forward it since we were considering it tonight. And as I said, there's many, many good reasons in here why that recommendation is being put forward. Thank you.
Councillor Bell?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just for clarity, are we hoping to make a decision tonight? Is that the...
I think that was the direction we were supposed to be making a decision.
If that's the case, I'd like to make a statement.
All right.
Am I allowed to do that? I'm not sure.
Is everyone in agreement that we were going to make a decision tonight? Councillor Miller?
No. If somebody was going to make that motion, I would expect to see a notice of motion. We don't have that. What we have is a report for information. So I would move that we receive that report for information. We did have a suggestion at our CDC that perhaps maybe we have a special meeting January 15th, which would be a week before the 22nd, or somewhere in there. That doesn't conflict with everything else. To actually have maybe someone from council who would like to see us opt out, put forward a notice of motion, and then the public knows that we'll be deciding that night whether to opt in or opt out. That's how I see it.
Councillor Bell?
Can I just go on?
Continue, yeah.
So I've been researching this last week or so. In fact, the end of my research today, I was walking the dog down the trail, and who should I see but somebody with a blue haze around him. So I stopped and chatted and said, I see you're smoking cannabis. What is your take on this? And he said to me, to my surprise, you should never have a retail store. If people want to get it, there are places to go legally now to get it. And you don't want it in Paris, and you don't want it in the county. And he said the county is a super nice place to live. It's a tourist attraction. You don't want people walking down Grand River Street North or St. George High Street or Burford High Street smoking pot. I think, Mr. Mayor, you mentioned you lived in Holland for a little while. I lived in Holland for 15 years. And as I used to make my daily trip from my home to my office, I took a bus to the station in the centre of The Hague, jumped on a tram. Going from the bus to the tram, it was like walking through a blue fog. 7:30 in the morning. And my concern is that I actually don't mind people smoking pot. The law is there. I'm not debating the law. What I am reflecting on, though, is a lot of people don't want to see it in front of them. They don't want to see it on the street. They don't want to see it in the neighborhood of schools. So I think we have an issue here, not so much about whether we approve retail stores or not, because right now the province only has 25 slots available for 444 municipalities. So the likelihood of Brant or Brantford getting one is fairly small. I think we have an issue, and I think it's a duty of care on us as a council to think about the majority of the people in this county, and that is about where people smoke their cannabis. We don't have a smoking bylaw, and I've read on a number of occasions as I've been doing my research. I think Mark Leferrier also saw it. Many councils are going the route of saying we can have retail stores, but we've got to have more control about where this smoking takes place. So, as we're not deciding whether to go or not, to opt in or not, I'll give you my two penneth worth. I would comfortably opt in if I could see stronger controls about where this smoking took place. And that requires us to put in place a smoking bylaw that we don't have.
Councillor Leferrier first.
Just a little more in support of that. Brantford is tightening up their existing bylaw. and we don't have one. And they're tightening it up in advance of the likelihood that they will opt in is my gauge of that. I would hate to see Emblem or the Burford Manufacturing Center for Cannabis or the other one that's coming to the county opt for stores in London and Brantford shipping their product there instead of having it be a part of the county. But I do agree. I think the majority of the concerns that I received from folks were about the smoking of it. And by the way, who likes tobacco smoke at the park? I don't. And I think we need to, this is long overdue, I think we need a smoking bylaw. And I'm wondering if we can ask staff to create a paper or some sort of information on smoking bylaw models and how they might help us with tobacco and marijuana smoke.
Councillor House.
I'm in support of the direction that Councillor Bell was illustrating, but I'd like to add a little bit to it. I do think we need to, I think people would feel more comfortable with whatever decision we make if they understood a little bit more about how we're going to handle it in this community. I think right now you could smoke cannabis on the front steps of the police station, but you can't drink a beer there. And that's the kind of thing, and that's a harsh illustration, but that's the kind of thing that is making people uncomfortable. At the same time, I also support the view that, and this is a little bit different than the friend that Councillor Bell made on the trail today with his cloud of blue smoke, but prohibition is over, and I'd like to see us put the bootleggers out of business. If we give people an opportunity and a place to act, people who want to access cannabis, I think we should help contribute to them being able to source it locally without needing to go to the guy down the street who doesn't have the same regulations and health controls in how they produce their product. And even the current model, prior to the retail opt-in or opt-out, even the current model of you can press a button right now on your computer, and in 3 days, for a fee of $5 from the OCS, your cannabis arrives to the house. And there's supposed to be controls over proving identity when you receive the product, but those are not always perfectly executed. So some of the fears that people have about how retail will impact our community, I think we have ways to improve how the community handles it and how people can access it. It is legal.
Councillor Gatward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, the County of Brant looked at a smoking bylaw a number of years ago because we had a request for one, and we chose not to create a smoking bylaw because there's already an act, a provincial act for smoking in Ontario, and we chose to use that act as our guidelines here in the county. The health unit enforces that act, and just as there's no smoking within 30 feet of some buildings, I believe you could not smoke cannabis on the police station steps. So I just wanted to correct that. The health unit doesn't have as many probably enforcement people as they would like, and if municipalities are relying on them to enforce the act, they're going to be busy people because they'll not only be enforcing the smoking part of the legislation, but cannabis as well. And I think if we opt in, then the onus will be on us and our bylaw enforcement officers as well to enforce the rules. And such as if, well, the onus will still be on us no matter what. Because if someone grows 6 plants in their yard and somebody complains because they're only supposed to have 4 plants in their yard, that's costing our municipality money. The province has offered some money, not nearly enough, because this could turn into a major enforcement issue for our county and our policing costs. And that's another reason I don't support stores, because they can get it online, they can grow it in their own property, and it's accessible to them. Do we need the issue of the stores and more enforcement costs? And the 27 people that I surveyed in Ward 5, 2 of them said, I don't care. The rest said, no, they didn't want it because they can get it online or elsewhere. So my position is that we should opt out, and we should look at it in a year or year and a half's time and make consideration then. When I read through even the AMO paper today that came just through, it said more information to follow. And I think that the province has rushed this through. They changed the original plan that the Liberal government had in place, having it controlled by the Liquor Control Board, and they've thrown it wide open, and I'm not sure that that was well thought out, but all the rules aren't even in place yet. So I think it's being rushed, and there's this carrot of the money that's being dangled in front of us, and I think it's wrong until the glitches are ironed out that we opt in. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I didn't realize we are going to have a big discussion on this, but I'll just add my 2 cents, which is the same 2 cents I had the other week. A lot of what Councillor Gatward is saying, I agree with, in the sense that this is new to everybody, and I understand that. We don't know what's going to happen with this. If we opt in, there's no way out. If we opt out, there's still a way in. Yes, I understand that it's legal now. I get that. I totally understand that. Where people can smoke it, that's got nothing to do with the retail stores themselves. As we said, that's in a different bylaw. At this point in time, as we have found from our OPP over the last, 6 months to a year as this has been coming in, they still don't have all the information that they require in order to police this. I agree with the sense that this has been rushed in. Is it going to happen someday? It probably is. But I think for now, until things are ironed out, I think our best bet is to opt out, because we can always opt in. Once we opt in, we don't have any control where these stores go other than 150 meters from a school. Other than that, we have zero control on that. I have a feeling that once this starts to go, the government may see that, hey, you know what, maybe the municipalities do need to have some control into where these go. I'm all for that. But again, I don't think we have the appropriate information to say that we understand exactly how this is going to play out. Our best option at this point in time is to opt out, because we can always opt in at a later date. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ferrier.
Just some information. The AMO provided us with some information that stated that there are actually rules around advertising. There are rules around freestanding buildings. So when people think there's going to be a cannabis stall at the Wincy Mills, that's not possible. There's rules around security and enforcement. There is rules around, there's some policy around us being able to, as a municipality, have 15-day window when a license comes up that we can object. Make a case to the province, and on top of that, year and a half, then by the time licensing happens, we're looking 2, 3, 4 years down the line. And I also worry again about local growers and manufacturers taking that time, that 2, 3, 4 years of lag, because that's what it's going to be, because it is going to come here eventually, and investing in other communities and not wanting to come back in terms of their retail outlet. That's what I worry about. Somebody brought up tourist dollars, and this being a nice town full of tourists, there's a market for that kind of tourism as well, which I think we should be looking into. And that's there is a lot more We can also provide a statement around sensitive areas in the policy we draft, which, yes, the province doesn't have to agree with, but I think they'd be foolish not to. And I think we'd be foolish not to have a sensitive areas policy if we do go forward, which could include libraries, daycares, schools, community centers, parks, etc., to help with some of that limiting as well. Just getting that information out there, I think, is important.
Any other comments, Councillor Coleman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's no motion on the floor, so I will move we receive this, seeking a seconder, and we set up a special meeting early in January to deal with this, because there's no sense having all this discussion if we're not going to have something there put forward. All right? Discussion is nice, but let's move on. I got better things to do.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councillor Miller. Any more conversation? Councillor Wheat?
Well, I'll support what Councillor Coleman and Councillor Miller are bringing forward for the time being, but believe it or not, I was actually listening instead of yakking. And my favorite comment came from Councillor Pierce, and I was thinking he was going to make a motion, and I was ready to jump up and second it, but maybe he'll make that motion at the special meeting. And I'll second it that night, John.
Councillor Gatward?
Thanks. I will support receiving the information and having a special meeting, and perhaps it can happen after our CDC meeting or before our CDC meeting. But I would ask that staff put the solicitor's report in that special meeting package along with the health unit, the impaired and distracted driving committee letter, all the documents that we have received, so that it's available in a month's time or whenever the meeting is. Thank you.
Any other comments? Councillor Bell?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would support Councillor Coleman's suggestion or motion, but I hope that we can expand the subject matter to also include the issue of a smoking bylaw, because I think the two are just so closely related.
Any other comments? Councillor Chambers?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not going to support the motion because I think we should deal with the issue tonight. I'm prepared to make a decision tonight, and I'm prepared to put forward a motion if this motion fails, that we waive notice and deal with it tonight.
All right, is everyone clear is there any other comments? Everyone's clear of the motion? Councillor Coleman?
Thank you, sir. Yes. Councillor Chambers is going to bring something forward. I will withdraw my motion. I was prepared to deal with this the next week. If that's what his wishes, I will withdraw my motion, taking my second short, and we can deal with this next. That was.
You're going to withdraw? Any other discussion? That's all clear before Councillor Chambers makes his motion? No more discussion? Councillor Miller?
Yeah, just a few things you'd have to do before that. I don't support withdrawing the motion. I'd like us to deal with that. I think there should be notice of motion. There's still more input to come. Tomorrow, I'm the liaison for the Chamber of Commerce. They're going to discuss it tomorrow at the meeting. And I know there's a few others that want to bring forward, would like to appear as well. So I still think there's more information to come. So I would still like us to receive this as information and have that discussion before. And just so you know, to get notice of to waive notice of motion, I believe you need a motion, don't you, to waive notice of motion? So you'd have to do that beforehand.
So we have to deal with Councillor Miller first or Councillor Chambers first?
You have to deal with the motion on the floor.
He's removed his motion. He's taken it off the floor. Right, which makes you back to zero.
Yeah, but I don't support withdrawing it, and the motion is before the floor, on the floor.
All right.
So you have to deal with it.
The only motion that's before us right now is Councillor Chambers.
No.
Heather?
I'm not sure. If the mover can withdraw the motion without the support of the seconder, I believe they can, but I'm not 100% sure. I can check.
And
Councillor Chambers?
Yes, it's my understanding that motions can be withdrawn with unanimity. If once the motion is placed, it's the table's motion, and if someone doesn't want it removed, then it should not be removed unless it's voted on. But the procedure would be, if you want to deal with the issue tonight, defeat the motion to defer and allow me to put a motion to waive notice, and then put a motion to deal with the subject. So technically the motion can't be withdrawn without unanimity, is my understanding, because it's not the mover's motion. Once it's moved and seconded, it's the table's motion.
All right. I'm not sure that makes much sense to me, but if that's the way it is, if he removes his motion, then it doesn't need a seconder because it doesn't exist. But we can call it, yeah.
I found the clarification, sorry. The procedural bylaw says that once read and stated by the mayor or presiding officer, which I believe we've done this, a motion may not be withdrawn without the consent of a majority of the members. So it's not necessarily the mover or the seconder, it's whether or not council agrees to withdraw, which essentially is voting on the motion, but that's what that says.
Well, then that's what we should do. So the motion is on the floor, it's been seconded. Any other discussion? Councillor House?
Just if there's any chance of us receiving new information between now and the possible January meeting, it would make sense to defer this decision until then, so we have all the information possible.
Any other comments before we vote? Councillor Miller?
Okay, so just, I think you should read the motion. I think that's what this motion is saying, that we just receive it for information, and we have a special meeting in January to consider the matter, such that you can give proper notice of motion and let the public in on. So that's why I'm supporting that.
Knowing if this gets defeated, there's something coming up the pipe. So we're going to call the vote. All those in favor?
Are we voting on receiving, or are we voting on squashing the motion?
We're voting on the only motion on the floor.
The motion is that the staff report be received and that a special meeting be called in early January to consider the matter.
Everyone's clear? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. Onward and upward. Number 10, information reports. Oh, I'm sorry, number C, that's Heather. Sorry.
So the Ontario Good Roads Association conference is coming up. Council has previously decided that we will be asking for a delegation on the natural gas extension in rural areas. There was two other that we put forward for the Roma, which are outlined in the report. So if there's those two topics or any other topics we want to present to at the Good Roads Conference, we need a motion to that effect this evening.
Well, if we're not successful in obtaining our delegation with Minister of Transportation at Roma, right? We did ask for that. Yeah. Then I think we should at least go for Good Roads.
We won't know likely until the deadline, but we can put that on.
Thank you. That's all I'm looking for.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay.
I need a motion to.
Yeah, we need. Okay, Councillor Coleman, Councillor Miller, all those in favor? Okay. Information reports. Nothing? Communications? Who's speaking to this? Councillor Gatward?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, when I read 11A, it was brought a lot of concerns to mind, and I'm wondering if this is a nearby property owner who said he has not been circulated, so to speak, doesn't have information about what's going on out in that area. So I'm wondering if the director or the general manager of planning could comment on this, because they were copied and they must have more information for us.
Councillor Bell?
Mr. Mayor, I have to declare I'm from 158 Willow Street, from where this letter has come from. But I also want to admit my surprise to see that this is on our agenda, when it's just simply a matter of, to my mind, the county staff answering what must be one of many letters they get during the course of every month.
Yeah.
So I'm just surprised at that, but I do declare I live there.
Okay. Your Worship. Your Worship, and through you, if I could. So any letter that comes in addressed to the mayor and council is put on the agenda for your consideration. The request is fairly simple. They've asked for a meeting with senior staff from the planning division for clarification. So the simple solution for council is to refer it to staff and coordinate the requested meeting. So.
And that's what we should do. Yeah. So move. John Pierce, Councillor Pierce, and Councillor Coleman. All those in favor? Thank you. 11B, do you want to speak to this?
So the Rural Ontario Municipal Association, they are looking for Board of Directors members. If any member of council wishes to sit as a representative on that, we will need a motion of council tonight before they can put in an application.
Is there any interest at the table? No? Okay, thank you. Any questions? 13 resolutions. A. Somebody has resolution? Yes, sir.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Bell, that the City of Brantford appointees to the Paramedic Service Committee may receive as written. If you wish me to read it, Mr. Mayor, I will, but it's page.
Are there any questions? Okay. All those in favor? Thank you. Number 14. Councillor Chambers?
Yes, I circulated people with regard to this. With the budget schedule that was proposed prior to the end of the term, et cetera, the long and short of it is I have conflicts with other appointments, appointed other meetings. For example, Long Point is the same night as one of these sessions. And originally the health unit was a conflict, but apparently the health unit has been rescheduled. So I'm down to a conflict of February the 6th and would like that to be changed with the rationale that if we are to be appointed to other organizations, we are expected to be there and we shouldn't conflict ourselves with overlapping meetings. And I don't know whether the Police Services Board would be the same as the health unit. I'm not sure whether they're meeting on that date or not, but so my simple request is that meetings be rescheduled so that members can attend without having to be absent from another appointed meeting that they were
Councillor Gatward?
Thank you. Yes, I made the clerk aware of the conflict for the date of the Police Services Board, because if Member Bailey and I attended the Police Services Board, we wouldn't have a quorum. We wouldn't be able to have a meeting. And also I had a conflict on the 18th because it's GRCA orientation, but I let the clerk know that in all of my when she requested we respond to the various dates. And I'm wondering if she has some firm dates now that everybody, or maybe everybody hasn't responded yet. I'm not sure. But I did let her know the conflicts I had.
Clerk?
I have got a number of responses. Finding dates that everyone is available is proving to be difficult. One easy solution that I had thought was that we would stick with the 16th and that police board could move their meeting, as it is an internal meeting, so they meet tomorrow. They could look at a change in their schedule. The 16th and the 23rd are the two that are pretty much solid, because the 23rd is external agencies and it's very difficult to reschedule those. And I thought if we could go forward with those two, I could then continue on looking for dates for the rest of them. But those 2 days, there really was no dates that everybody could make.
Councillor Pierce?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, and you're absolutely right, Heather, in the sense that, we're probably not going to get a date where everybody is going to be available. And I agree with Councillor Chambers in the sense that if we're going to be appointed to these committees, these different committees, it's important for us to attend the meetings. I totally get that. A lot of these committees, whether they meet, quarterly, semi-annually, monthly, whatever, we have one shot at a budget, and that's the first of the year. So it's not like we're going to be missing 2 and 3 meetings of these committees. I feel that it's important for everybody around this horseshoe to be at the budget meetings. I think that it should be our #1 priority, not to take anything away from these committees, but I feel it's important for these other committees, if there is a conflict, to potentially work around, or unfortunately, maybe we have to miss a meeting.
Councillor Chambers?
And just to respond to that, for example, the Long Point meeting, to reschedule that meeting, there's 6 municipalities have to reschedule a meeting. It's not going to happen. And that meeting has been the same first Wednesday evening for the last 15 years that I've been on the board. The dilemma is that that's a budget meeting as well. So if I'm expected to be at that budget meeting and this budget meeting, it would seem to me that there could be an alternate date that would take me out of my dilemma. And I'm suggesting that it be the 21st, but I don't know whether anybody can be. So it's either me miss one budget meeting or another, and last year I had to miss not the external agencies, but the grants, et cetera, and I think it's important that everybody be here to hear the grant requests for all the organizations to come forward. If I'm not here, then I'm questioning why I'm not here, and don't I support the board? And well, no, I had to be at Long Point to support that. So that's the dilemma that I face, and I still believe that there's alternate dates that don't conflict with appointments that you're expected to be at by this council. You can't be in 2 places at once. And if you can't change one, you have to change the other, and there's no way you can change the Long Point board without.
Have you looked as hard as you can look for a date to?
Well, I do so far, unless someone else hasn't told me. The 6th, actually, I do have an alternate for, is the 7th, and no one has told me that that date is bad. Unless someone's telling me now. So far, that date looks...
Thursday, February the 7th. Yeah, that works. Pardon me? Oh, you can't make that meeting? Oh.
I got a lot of problems with that, too.
So what do we do with that? We have the meeting with Mr. Chambers or without Mr. Miller?
If I understand, David wasn't going to be here for the 6th either. February 6th.
All right. So then the new date is February the 7th. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yep. 14B, request from the Brant Waterways Foundation for a representative from council. Is anyone interested? Sometimes just because they want a representative doesn't mean they get one. Mark?
Do they meet?
Pardon me?
When's their meetings?
Let me check the email.
I always thought it was just before police services. Was the mayor on that? Was Ron on that? And Willem was on that.
Willem, and then I was on it prior to Willem, and then I think Councillor Wheat was on it prior to me.
Councillor Wheat?
It used to be a member of Community Services, and it was the chair of Community Services. That's how I got there. When I was chair of Community Services, it seemed like I was automatically on Brant Waterways. But then when I was no longer chair of Community Service, which is fine, and Willem was there as a citizen, and then Willem Bauman got on council. So we being the county of Brant, left him there as a council representative instead of a citizen, which he was originally there. So he just became a council representative instead of a citizen.
Perfect.
It worked out perfectly.
Did you find the email to see when they meet?
Well, I found the email, but it didn't say within that. So.
Is anyone interested if it works out, you're interested? Is anyone else interested if it works out for their schedule? Okay, maybe
you can do it this next meeting if you want me to look that up.
Okay, thank you. 14C, Councillor Bell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. In the last update of the Municipal Act, and I think we got this from Nigel Belchamber and his colleague, we are now, the applicable procedure bylaw may provide that a member of council can participate electronically in a meeting which is open to the public to the extent and in the manner, da-da-da-da. Now, that perhaps may address some of the issues that we just discussed about conflicts of date. So I asked Heather, are we set up for electronic participation? The answer is no, not at the moment. So there are two things we need to do. One is to pass a bylaw that allows it in this county, and the second is then to put the technology in place. I think the technology is relatively simple. The bylaw, at least, is a software solution as opposed to a little bit of hardware. So it would help me, because I can attend a lot of meetings electronically. That's been my practice when I was working, so I'm very comfortable with that. I know others may not be, but I think if we have it as an option, it increases the flexibility in people being able to deal with some of the scheduling conflicts we've just been talking about. So I would propose that I would make a motion that we actually put a bylaw in place and that we have staff address the technology issues surrounding it.
Your Worship, through you, so I just understood that you're making a recommendation that we amend the procedural bylaw to allow electronic meeting attendance.
Correct.
Councillor Pierce?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, the only issue I can see with that is we have meetings in all different buildings, and there's no real, like, for example, it might be possible if the meeting is held in council chambers. Let's just say for a Parks and Recreation meeting that's up at the Twin Pad, it may not be, we may not be able to do it, depending on what's going to be required, whether we're talking like a, like a Zoom session where you're almost like a Skype, so to speak. I'm not sure, but we need to understand that meetings are held in different locations that may or may not have internet access in order to do that. So we need to understand that as we're going through as well.
I don't believe the motion has been seconded yet, so just bear with me, John. I would be prepared to second a motion that requested staff to provide information regarding that so that we have some information in order to base a decision on whether we want to move forward or not. Otherwise, you're running into a notice of motions issues by springing that on us as a direction at this point. But asking staff for direction would be probably the best way to go, and then it comes back, and then we can deal with that. So I'll second that motion if that was what the motion you made.
All right, any other discussion? Councillor Gatward?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, and I would I would support a staff report, because in the past, when we've had members of committees suggest electronic meetings, and we had a request a couple months ago, we were told by staff that it's not legal and we can't do it. And now all of a sudden, I'm hearing something different. So I guess, yeah, a report would be good. I know the city of Brantford doesn't allow them.
Maybe you have to live in the county. Okay, so we have a motion on the table. We have a seconder. All those in favor? Okay, it's going to be directed to staff for a report. Thank you. In camera, we're going to go in camera. Motion to go in camera. Councillor Howes?
Somebody has it.
Oh, somebody has it? Somebody has it?
Oh, sorry. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Coleman, that Brant County Council convene in camera to discuss the proposed acquisition of land / direction related to a negotiated position, the Corporate Development Committee report of December 10th, 2018.
Thank you. We're in camera.
We have to vote.
Oh, we have to vote. All those in favor? Chambers?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, it's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Pierce that the recommendation from the Corporate Development Committee on the in-camera session be approved, and that is that the County of Brant enter into a sublease of 3,000 plus square feet office block at Mechanic Street, Wincy Mills, for a lease term starting immediately and ending on May 31st, 2022, and that a bylaw be authorized, passed to authorize it.
Seconder? Councillor Pierce? All those in favor? Carried. Bylaws.
Moved by my, first reading of the bylaws, moved by myself, second by Councillor Coleman, that the following bylaws be now read a first time, and that would be bylaw number 162-18 to bylaw number 170-18 inclusive.
Are there any of those bylaws you want? No? Okay, first reading. All those in favor? Second reading.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Coleman, that the following bylaws be now read a second time. All clauses and preambles be adopted. Bylaws numbers 162-18 to bylaws numbers 170-18 inclusive. And Mr. Mayor, usually after the second reading of bylaws is the motion is presented, that's when we ask for questions.
Between each reading?
No, just after the second one.
All right. Are there any questions before we do the third reading? Seeing none, third reading?
We're going to vote.
We have to call a vote for the second reading. All those in favor? There you go. Thank you.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Coleman, that the following bylaws be now read a third time, passed, signed, and sealed. And that would be bylaws numbers 162-18 to bylaws number 170-18 inclusive.
Call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Number 17, the next meeting, Tuesday, January 22nd. Yeah. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Ferrier.